Alright guys, so tonight on Night Owl, we're going to be working on the starter. The starter that's in there is a good one, so I'll save it for a backup, but I just want to put a new one in there just to have a fresh component in there for this vehicle. So let's go ahead and take a look at the starter that I got. It's a AC Delco, pretty well-known brand. These come with a new bushing. I didn't realize they did, so I purchased another bushing for it, but that's not a big deal. They're a couple bucks. So since my Bug is a 68, it is a 12-volt system. I can't remember which year they switched over from 6 to 12. I believe it was 66, somewhere in there. I could be wrong. So anyways, just got to make sure you have the correct bushing. This starter will work for both 6 volt and 12 volt, but you'll need to put a 6 volt bushing in there, which I believe has a smaller diameter in here. So anyways, that's the starter. And then I got a new steering box just to freshen it up, make it a little tighter in front. So I'm hoping to get to this tonight. Probably won't be able to, but I know this guy will be swapped out this evening. So let's go ahead and see what we got to do underneath the car. So coming over here, I got just a test battery on it. Got my positive lead and negative lead hooked up, just so I can get the vehicle turned over so I can know it's running properly. But what we're doing tonight is going to be replacing that old rusty starter, which I know works because it does turn the engine. So first thing we're going to need to do is take off the power lead, and then we'll also have to take off the solenoid power. And then there's two bolts, one that's just into the transmission, and then one that mounts the transmission as well. Taking that one off is not going to let the engine fall, so don't worry. But you're going to need to pull that guy out as well. So let's go ahead and get started. I believe those are, I want to say 17 millimeters. Could be wrong. I'll get a wrench on them. But I believe they're 17s. So let's go ahead and pull the power off the battery, and then I'll pull this lead off the starter. So what we have a 13 millimeter on this bolt back here, or excuse me, nut. We have 17 on this guy, and then we have a 15 for the case. Now I switched this one out, this nut out, so it may be on yours, maybe a 17, but mine's a 15, so that's what we have. So we're gonna go ahead and first, like I said, take the lead off the battery, okay? Now I'm going to take the other end of the lead off of the starter. So we'll remove that. So, I don't know if you noticed, as soon as I cracked the one for the transmission mount, you can start seeing it breaking loose. That's as easy as it gets, guys. I mean, a couple bolts and this thing slides right out. One thing you want to make sure though is that bushing on the inside is still good. If it's not, you'll need to replace it, or change it out to a 12 volt if you're going to a 12 volt system. So at this point, we're just going to take this thing out just like that. Okay. Oh, I stopped the bolt on the top. Right off the bat, you can see that the casing for the new one is quite a bit smaller. I don't know if the shadow's throwing it off or not, but it's quite a bit smaller, and the solenoid's quite a bit smaller. Okay, it shouldn't be a problem. But we'll test it out when we get this thing in there. So the way we had it set up before was the solenoid was towards me, and the starter was towards the transmission, so that's where we're going to slide it back in. All right. One thing you want to check is make sure the teeth are in the proper location, and the shaft lengths are the same length. Okay. So in this case, we shouldn't have any issues. So let's go ahead and get it. So you will notice this bolt has a flat edge on it. The flat edge goes towards the starter. What that does is allow you to tighten just the nut side. You don't have to hold on to the starter side, okay? And on the starter case, there's actually a notch to hold that flat side so it doesn't spin on you. So got it back together. Obviously, if you have a full body bug, it's going to be a little bit tougher to get in there. You're going to have to probably jack the car up quite a ways just to get your hands underneath in there. You're going to have to reach beside both sides of the axle just to get to the bolts. So anyways, that's as simple as it gets. Let's go ahead and bump start it and see if the starter actually works. Yep. Works perfect. So we're good. Alright guys, so we're going to get going on installing this steering box tonight as well. So first thing we're going to need to do, obviously, is remove it from the vehicle, which we're going to be removing these two bolts off of, and then there's a clamp that's on the beam. The 2 bolts and the clamp, we're going to reuse those. Once we get it off the vehicle, we are going to reuse the steering bushing that goes on here, and then we're also going to reuse the Pitman arm. So probably easier to remove all that outside of the vehicle. So we're going to go ahead and open up the hood and get these 2 guys off. Now, since I am building this car, I'm able to get in to it through the hood because I have the gas tank out of the car. So that makes it a lot easier for me. But what we're going to need to do is obviously get to this bolt here. I don't know if you can see that. It's a little tough. There's a bolt there and one on the other side. That'll remove this whole steering box, and then we can remove this bushing and then remove the Pitman arm. Now the Pitman arm is attached to all the other linkages, so I'll have to remove those 2 bolts as well. So let's go ahead and get going. Okay, so after I've gotten that collar removed on that nut, it's a 17 millimeter. Just gonna take off that one and the one on the bottom, okay? Got the old grease bucket out. I just got to reinstall the new one. So let's go ahead and get this bushing off and get that on the new one, and then I'll get this whole piece slid back into the car. Now, I don't know if you can see those. You want to try to line them up with the same grooves that are already there. That'll kind of get you close to where you need to be. Once you get it kind of tight, you want to put your steering shaft back on so everything's lined back up properly. Now, in my case, I have a U-joint that's coming off of here, so I'll get it close to that, and then the U-joint will make up the difference. So let's go ahead and get the new one in its place. Alright guys, so I got the new one back in, just tightening up the last two bolts for mounting to the beam. Putting on these washers, and then I'm going to put the other steering dampener on and the Pitman arm that I pulled off. So let's go ahead and get this thing tightened down. That's that. Got the steering box in there, the new bushing on, got all the brackets tightened down, got the Pitman arm back on. So that's that. So now I just got to get my steering shaft in there and get 2 holes drilled into it and mount these 2 screws, and then that'll be done. So alright, thanks guys for watching. We'll get you another update soon.